What causes mutations? Is it necessarily that mutations are induced by an environmental condition, or can they arise spontaneously? In 1943, experimenters Luria and Delbruck demonstrated that they could occur at random. And these two examples are modifications of their experimental design. If one starts with a strain of bacteria, which can become infected with virus, but which can give rise to resistant strains, and then expose all 5 of these tubes to virus, if it is the virus and exposure to virus which causes the mutation, which induces the mutation, then all 5 of these populations would be expected to develop resistant strains at about the same frequency. If, however, mutations arise spontaneously, so that some bacteria would become resistant to viral infection, even in the absence of virus, then the number of resistant individuals in the population would be a function of when the mutations arose. Early after the bacteria were added to the culture, or later, and not by the addition of the virus. So when they looked at the results, they saw that the number of mutant bacteria which were resistant to the virus varied greatly from plate to plate, indicating that plates which had resistant mutation occur early in the population growth phase then had many resistant bacteria. Others had fewer, some might have had none. This led them to conclude that mutations occurred at random. What was not observed was that the rate of mutation and the number of mutant colonies was comparable from each vial, so that it was concluded that the mutations were not induced by the addition of the virus. In a second example demonstrating the same principle, imagine that there are auxotrophic bacteria which will die unless a certain nutrient is added to their media, but that this strain occasionally gives rise to a mutant lineage which can make its own metabolite and thus survive even when it is not provided, a prototrophic strain. Well, what causes this mutation? Is it the absence of nutrients? So that the bacteria more or less mutate because they have to in order to survive. So is this a response to the environment? Or is it that these mutations occur at random, and thus it's just dumb luck whether when the bacteria are placed in a minimal media, some now have the ability to make the metabolite which is missing. If this mutation occurred in response to the new media which lacked a certain nutrient, one would expect all 5 of these tubes to develop mutant strains at about the same rate, because they're all experiencing the same environmental condition which would trigger this. However, if it is now just a random event that a bacteria might now mutate a broken gene so that they can now synthesize a needed metabolite, then the frequency of prototrophic individuals would vary on when the mutations occur. Early in the population growth, later in the population growth, maybe it wouldn't occur at all. It is noted that it is the second scenario which is supported by the evidence, so that the number of mutant colonies varies and can vary greatly from plate to plate, and it is not comparable as would be predicted if it was the addition of the medium which is the cause inducing the mutations. So the conclusion is that mutations occur at random, and then it is simply then luck on the case of the bacteria as to whether this mutation then has an adaptive advantage in the environment they find themselves in.